Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Excellence. My name is Patrick Cummings, and as always, I am here with Ben Bergeron. Every week on the show, we dedicate some time to exploring how we can live a life of better health and increased fulfillment. We answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, dive deep on living a life of excellence, and explore the strategies and frameworks to help us chase what truly matters. Thank you so much for joining us again. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing great, Patrick. Thank you.
We've got a good episode ahead. We're going to start, as we always do, with our warm-up, which is when we answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, those few fundamental behaviors that most positively affect our performance, vitality, and longevity. Those 5 factors, in case you are new, is how we eat, how we move, how we think, how we connect with each other, and how we recover. We've got one question for each one of those factors. Let's jump right into it with a question about the move factor. I'm a 25-year-old female looking to optimize for longevity. While I'm otherwise fit and healthy, I've tended to neglect strength training, but want to finally set aside excuses and commit. Where would you start with an absolute beginner when it comes to strength training for longevity?
For starters, the fact that a 25-year-old is looking to optimize for longevity is a pretty mature 25-year-old. I don't think that's the majority of the 20-somethings out there. I think they're looking to optimize for other things.
Yep.
So kudos to the listener. Okay, so for an absolute beginner, so I'm assuming that's somebody that's never been to the gym, never worked with moving external loads.
She does say she's otherwise fit and healthy.
So sure. I'm guessing like done some yoga, maybe done some 5Ks.
Might be just a beginner with quote unquote strength.
Right. Yeah. But never used a barbell, never done any sort of strength training. So that's where I would start, is I would buy or go to a gym and start using an empty barbell. Mm-hmm. That's really what it is. In terms of like, what do I mean by that? It would be, let's lay on a bench and try to do some empty barbell bench presses. And the goal is just to try to stabilize some movement patterns. So first and foremost is, can we control it? Like in a static position, can we put it above our shoulders, and can we just hold it there without like any wobbling on a bench? And then similar to that is, can we put that thing on a front rack on our shoulders? Can we put it on our back rack on the back? And can we get into those positions? That's where I would start. Like, can we get into some end ranges positions? And then from there, I go to the other end. Well, now that we've got the starting position of a bench press, the starting position of a front or a back squat, or the starting position, which I'll call standing up tall, like with the barbell at the hang for a deadlift, can we get to the other end? Can we get to bench press? Can we get to that on our chest? Can we get to that on our back? Can we get all the way down below parallel? For a deadlift, can we get below our knees, maintaining an arch in our lower back? And that's what I would do. I would think about those 3 movements: bench press, squat, and I'll call it hinging at the hips, which is a deadlift. Mm-hmm. And if we can hold those at the end ranges, then we start to work on just making sure that the pattern looks good throughout, right? We're initiating the moves appropriately. Mm-hmm. And I would do, so getting a little more specific, I would do 3 sets of 10 reps of those 3 movements. And that's all I would focus on. Yep. And I would do that 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You do 3 sets of 10 bench press with an empty barbell. 3 sets of 10 back squat with an empty barbell. 3 sets of 10 deadlifts with an empty barbell. And then do that for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I would do that for 2 or 3 weeks. Then when you get towards the end of that month, then we could say, could we add 2.5 or 5 pound plates to the end of that thing? And you do that for another week or 2, and just that linear progression of every other week or so, add some weight.
If the person was starting and an empty barbell was like, okay, this is a piece of cake, right? Let's just say it's a stronger male versus a beginner female. Would you still have them with the empty barbells just to make sure, working on that range of motion, working on those points of performance that you mentioned, or would you say start where it's easy but not too easy? Like how would you get somebody to start who is maybe a little bit more advanced?
Yeah, so a little bit more advanced, I would start at Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm borrowing from a program that's actually called Starting Strength. It's popularized and written by Mark Ripto. So if there's actually a book, there's a program called Starting Strength. 3 lifts. It's your press, it's your squat, your dead, and you do 3 sets of each of those. And the idea is that in the beginning, you can really quickly, so this is what defines a beginner in lifting. The way you define a beginner is every single time they come in the gym, they can make an adaptation and lift more weight.
Got it.
That's what a beginner is.
Yep.
And then intermediate is maybe I can make those gains every week or so. And advanced is maybe I can make those gains every quarter. Like it takes me 3 months to put on 5 pounds on these lifts. That's the way you define beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So in the beginning, we would just want to start at a low enough level that every week you're able to continue to increase. If we top out, let's say your max bench press is 135 pounds for 10 reps.
Yep.
And you come in and after a week or two, you can't put any more weight on, we started too heavy. You didn't give yourself enough runway to build up the capacities underneath that.
Next question is in the think category. I'm always striving to chase excellence, to be the best that I can be. But like all imperfect humans, I fall short, make a mistake, or react badly at times. I find that when that happens, I let it consume me, beating myself up, becoming very disappointed in myself, letting it affect me mentally and emotionally. How do we find the middle ground of chasing excellence, but give ourselves grace when we fall short and do not achieve that?
Beautiful. I love our listeners. So kudos to this person for the awareness of that. That's a massive level of awareness. So that's phenomenal. Here's what I would challenge the listener person asking this question. I would challenge the way that they're defining chasing excellence. It sounds like they're chasing accolades and awards. They're chasing achievements. Yep. That to me is not chasing excellence. Yep. To me, chasing excellence is the awareness that you now have, which is how can you create peace of mind in the present moment when you're challenged? And you're already like at step 5, 6, or 7, the fact that you have this much level of awareness. Yep. But that's, to me, is excellence. What we all want above all else is a sense of well-being. We want to feel good inside. Now, what we do as a alternative approach to that is try to get these. When I get the raise, I feel good. When I buy that item, I feel good.
Extrinsic versus the intrinsic.
Exactly right. And what we're looking for is not to satisfy for the extrinsic. Let's work internally. Yep. And this is basically like Chasing Excellence 2.0. In the beginning, yes, it's about becoming disciplined, becoming a hard charger, becoming somebody that is willing to do the hard work. It's about putting off temptations. But after a while, that becomes who you are. That becomes your MO. What we then need to recognize is fulfillment is not on the other side of that. Fulfillment is in the here and now. And the here and now that we need to work on is, can I feel okay inside when the outside world is not lining up with my expectations? Because that is reality. We're not going to be able to control the outside world. I've said it before, I just looked this up yesterday, but now there's 7.98 billion people on planet Earth.
I think we crossed over 8, maybe just for a moment.
So yes, maybe for a moment. But I was just, it actually popped up on my Alexa. It was like, that was one of the suggested questions. I was like, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It said, so there's just shy of 8 billion people on planet Earth. If our objective is to get those 8 billion people to act, behave, treat us the way that we want, we're setting ourselves up for massive levels of angst, anxiety, stress, disappointment. Instead, what if we worked on our ability to respond to those people when they don't line up with the way we want? Your boss isn't going to treat you the way that you want to. It's not going to recognize your rewards. It's not going to recognize their contributions. It's not going to recognize your skill set. Okay, how can you be okay with that? Your spouse is going to say things that trigger you. Like they're going to act and behave in ways that you wish that they wouldn't. And gosh, instead of like thinking like, did I marry the right person? Yeah. Or why do they act like that? It's on us. We need to respond more appropriately. Our parents, as you get older and you get past your 20s and you get 30s and 40s, your parents they can be massively triggering. If it's not your parents, maybe it's your in-laws. Maybe they trigger you. Well, the job is working on us. We're so quick to point fingers. Let's pull the thumbs and work on the way we respond to these situations. And that, to me, is a massive part of chasing excellence. Because what we want is not excellence so people look at you and go, Patrick, you are excellent. You're amazing. Look at what you've achieved, which is in the long run going to be empty. What we want is the fulfillment inside. And that's only going to come from us feeling okay regardless of what's happening around us.
Love that. Chasing Excellence 2.0. Okay, next one is from the eat category, and this is from Aaron. A lot of athletes go through bulking and cutting phases regularly. If my goal is to get stronger, is there any value or risk in doing this? Or should I just be at a slight calorie surplus and cut back whenever I reach my goal?
He answered the question with the last piece. If your goal is to gain strength, you should be in a calorie surplus. No reason to cut when you are in, you can't. So back up. Can that happen? Can you gain strength while losing weight? Yes. And this got flies in the face of exercise science, but we've seen it dozens and dozens of times in my gym, and we've seen it tens of thousands of times in this community where people will lose literally 150 pounds and during that process increase their strength. So that idea of you need to be in a calorie surplus to gain strength is not true. It makes it easier. It's easier to gain strength when you're in a calorie surplus. So for Aaron, I would suggest just that.
Love it. Recover question. This is from Victor. I work out usually around 6 or 7 p.m. because of my work schedule. I try to limit my caffeine intake past 2 p.m. for sleep reasons. But can I take it later knowing I'm going to have a tough workout? Or how can I supplement before my workout to make sure I still have enough energy without preventing me from having a good night of sleep?
Yeah, great question. And again, love the level of awareness. Try to keep it below 12. I would actually encourage people to be before noon, but it depends on a little bit, kind of like everyone, the half-life of caffeine affects different people differently. But certainly 2 p.m. is a great cutoff point. So then the question becomes, can I do this for tough workouts? And my answer would be no. I think it's better to go through a workout and not have everything you possibly could have, but then be able to sleep and recover after that. Yeah. I think that your ego might want you to do the caffeine thing, but that's a slippery slope and can lead to some really destructive habits. And the awareness that he has that it affects his sleep is so phenomenal. So then the secondary question there becomes, what can I do to help stimulate myself to get ready for that? My suggestion would not be through supplementation, but through a warm-up protocol. And when you're feeling sluggish late in the afternoon, a better protocol is how can I wake up the nervous system? So most people, when they do their warm-ups, are thinking about warming up the cardiovascular and the muscular system, which is I'm going to get breathing a little bit heavy. So when I get in this first round of rowing intervals, I'm not first to have that shock effect. I get my second wind beforehand. The next is I'm going to work up the muscular system, both through full range of motion by stretching, but also by using some lighter loads so I'm ready for the heavier loads. That makes total sense. The thing that gets missed a little bit is warming up the nervous system, which is getting things to fire quickly, putting yourself in a closer state of fight or flight if you want to go that way, working yourself out of that parasympathetic into the sympathetic so you are ready to go. And there's a bunch of different ways that you could do this. Some get kind of wacky, like getting slapped in the face, or you see like weightlifters before they go in there, a coach will slap them on the back. But the one that I like the best is movement-based, and you control it. You don't need a super buddy that slaps you around. And you see this all the time, particularly, which I like, is when you're watching the World Cup soccer. Before athletes go on the field, what do? You see them. They're wearing the pinnies, and they're on the sidelines. They're doing quick little steps. They do quick little sprints, and then almost to a T, they all do a few tuck jumps. And you see sprinters do this before they do the 100-meter dash. You see, you'll see football players do this as well. Intuitively, those tuck jumps fire off the nervous system. They're such an explosive. So we think of, let's kind of quickly, like really low CNS would be like sitting on a machine. I'm going to sit on a machine and do a leg extension, right? Just sit down and straighten my leg against resistance. There's no nervous system required there, just muscular. Well, the opposite end of that spectrum is something like an Olympic lift or a sprint or a broad jump, where it's this massive explosion of total body kinetic energy. Well, what we want to do in our warm-ups is involve some of those movements. So tuck jumps certainly work. In our space, grab a moderate weight medicine ball and slam it into the ground a couple times as hard as you can. So really quick, explosive burst type movements. Not right away. I would do the normal warm-up stuff, cardiovascular, muscular, stretching, full range of motion. But before you get into it, this really wakes things up a lot.
Love that. That's good. I'm going to steal some of that because, as you know, I work out at night sometimes too. And the higher intensity workouts are the things that have the negative effect on the sleep. And so it's just about like figuring out where that sweet spot is. And I'll just say one of the things I'm experimenting with is on those high intensity workouts, I just try to find a different time of the day to do them because it's just too, it's like 50-50. Exactly. It's like, maybe this is going to keep me up till midnight and maybe it won't at all. And it's just like, at the end of the day, it's just like, well, it's not really worth that risk.
Yeah.
So do the slightly lower intensity stuff still at night and then try to find the couple times a week that you can sneak it in the middle of the day. All right, last question for our warm-up is in the Connect bucket, and this is from Don. I experienced a loss of trust in my coach in the gym I work at because some of the technique and practices in the gym were contradictory to those I had seen in other good coaches online. In the end, I not only lost trust I had in my boss, but we would constantly get into discussions and not very pretty ones. Mm-hmm. So there's not a question in there, but I guess the implied question is
just letting us
know. The implied question, I guess, is maybe what to do with this relationship where there is this tension, this loss of trust, and the disagreement over something that they probably both feel very strongly about.
How do I navigate the situation where I believe in this one thing? I've learned about this through trusted sources, and my boss is telling me something different. The first thing I would do is approach it with a curious mindset, and not necessarily go, because your boss might be right. The people that you're trusting online might not have the complete picture that your boss does. So the curiosity mindset always kind of is a cure-all to everything. Yeah. Instead of being judgmental, my boss is wrong, those guys are right online, go with their level of curiosity. Like, that's fascinating. That's so counter to what I've learned and what I've been taught. And then go at it like, tell me more about why you think that way. Your boss might be like super like 4, 5, 6 levels past these other people. Now, that might not be the case. And if that's not the case, you'll at least be able to verify that through this levels of curiosity. So what got you to this level of understanding? Tell me what have you done that have, so maybe more concrete. You believe that in when you do a front squat, the line of action should be butt back and down. That's what we learn in CrossFit. Your coach says, no, it should be butt straight down. Well, who's correct? That's a really good conversation. And you go, listen, all these guys, I went to my level 1, I did all these things. They're telling me the line of action is butt back and down. He says that's not the way I've coached. If you go, God, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, you might be wrong in that situation. The line of action, butt back and down, is a fix for improper line of action, which means that you're becoming too knee dominant. But if you work with the Chinese weightlifting team, you would know that they don't do butt back and down. They're trying to maintain as vertical a torso as they can, and they initiate their squats with a knee-initiated movement. So it always goes back to that level of curiosity, and can I learn from this? Can I learn from this? And then from there, you can draw your conclusions after that. But I would challenge anyone not to draw those conclusions too early or permanently. Mm-hmm. I've changed my view over the 2 decades of being a strength coach in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different movements, as I've been exposed to other people that I trust.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It makes me think of, I used to do some work with Dmitry Kolkov, who was the Olympic weightlifter, Olympian. And when he'd do seminars, like that was always one of the biggest things that he was, one, it was the language barrier, which he got better as the years went on. But that was the thing he was always working against. Like, oh, everybody learns it this way. And for the next 8 hours, I'm going to try to get you to think differently about everything.
Yeah.
And the people who could just kind of let go in that moment or on that day, just like, okay, cool, I'm just going to like put that in the back and then I'm just going to listen and try to do what he says. They can go home with a sense of, okay, I'm going to keep some of that didn't make sense, or some of that hurt too much, right? And the ones who fought against it just didn't make any progress throughout the day, just because they were too busy thinking like, that's not how we do it. That's not how we do it. And I always thought that was funny because like, have you seen him lift weights before? Because he probably knows what he's talking about.
And like, why are you here?
Exactly. That's
like
it.
You're here not for him to say like, this is everything that you're doing is right.
Yep.
You're here to see if there's another better possible way. Yeah. So why not go into it always with as open a mind and curiosity as possible? And then you can make your judgments, if you want to call them that, later on.
Or adjustments.
Better word.
All right, we're going to jump into our workout. Speaking of working out, we got a question from Shane. Although this might be the opposite of chasing excellence, how would you define a minimally acceptable level of health and fitness for an average person? So many folks are living unhealthy and unfit lives, but are very far away from the general CrossFitter and even further from most who listen to this podcast. Wouldn't getting as many people as possible to an acceptable standard be a great collective achievement for society? I think of it as getting a C+ in life fitness, or maybe, I love this, chasing adequacy, which we're going to change our title of our podcast to Chasing. No, I'm just kidding. But I love this question. This is something that I think is important to unpack and talk about and figure out where that optimal level of fitness for the average person. We can define those terms as we see fit. But first thoughts on this question from Shane.
I really love this question, and mostly because of what he said in there towards the end, which is something along the lines. Wouldn't it be an amazing?
Wouldn't getting as many people as possible to an acceptable standard be a great collective achievement for society?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, absolutely. So it's really fun. It's what I spent the last 10 years of my life essentially doing, taking fit people and making me even fitter.
Yeah.
Right. But to Shane,
Shane. Yep.
Shane's point is like, those are the people that need the most help. Like everybody needs help and everyone can be better suited with more vitality, more energy, more robustness, more of a buffer against sickness. But yeah, Shane, like moving the people that need it the most up to the middle. Yeah, if you want to improve your school, moving people from B+ to A's is good. Getting people from NESCAC schools to Ivy League schools is good, but they're already set up for success.
Yep.
Getting people that are failing out, dropping out, not going to higher education, getting them into that pipeline, you're making massive, drastic changes. So I love this question. In effort to create a framework for this, which is what we love to do, there's one that we've talked about before, which is the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum. Yep. On if you think of this as like a bell-shaped curve, on the lower left-hand side, you have sickness. And sickness, what we can do is put some numerical metrics to what that would look like from anything. So I'll ask you, I don't remember what Shane asked. Was he asking about health or was he asking about fitness?
He had a little bit of both in there.
Okay.
So health and fitness.
Okay, so let's talk about those kind of both. So if we're going to talk about this in terms of fitness, it's your performance. So fitness is your work capacity. It's the ability to do things. So we would just take some fitness numbers. It's as simple as this and go, where do we rank those on that continuum? Are you sick? Are you well? Or are you truly fit? So depending on age, it matters in this, but generally if we take a normal middle population, 30-year-old something, we could take anything. You tell me and I'll give you the numbers back. What do we want to do? It's like mile run, pull up, clean and jerk, like Fran, anything.
Yeah, I would say, just for sake of conversation, I'd say 1 mile run.
Let's just stick with that one.
Cool.
Okay, so we got a 1 mile run. If you can't complete a mile in about 12, 13, 14 minutes, somewhere in there, I would say that you're unable to navigate life the way that you possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, you can walk a mile in 20 minutes. So walking pace is 3 miles an hour. That's 20-minute mile. So if you can't jog a mile, that's what it gets down to. If you can't jog a mile, you're sick. Now, if you could do a mile in about 8 to 10 minutes, you're well. Like you're no one's gonna have a conversation with you either which way, right? When grandma can no longer, or anybody, even better, when the 30-year-old, when your cousin can't really even like jog, depending on a mile, you're like, dude, you gotta like change something. Well, any of your cousins that are doing 9-minute miles, you don't have a conversation with them. But the cousin that can do a 5-minute mile, you're like, dude, this guy's ridiculous. He can run. That's the fitness thing. So in the middle, there's no conversations. There's conversations on the ends. And that's why it's that bell-shaped curve. Most of us fall in that well category. So this is the goal. Can we get people from a fitness perspective, forget about from doing 13, 14, 15-minute miles? Yes. Can we get them to 8, 9, and 10-minute miles? That would be one of those things that we'd be wanting to do. In terms of deadlifts, if you can't deadlift, the kind of numbers is like half of your body weight.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you can't go to Home Depot and pick up one of those really big, heavy bags, right? Like a 70, 80 pound, that type of thing. If you can't deadlift half of your weight, you're going to be restricted in everyday life. Well, once you can deadlift your body weight, we put that in the well category. Now, fit would be double your body weight. And we can do that for all these things. And I love that idea of, yes, let's move people up that spectrum. Now, that's for the fitness side of things. We could map anything else that we talk about this show on that spectrum, meaning we could do it with sleep. So what we want to do is map the behaviors, not just the outcomes. So if we want to map the behaviors of the fitness thing, what that means is if you are only being active, meaning like 20 to 30 minutes, 60 minutes, once a week, you're not going to get there. That's not going to do it. Now, in the middle, we're talking about that's the middle. No one's going to talk to you if you're doing the gym 3 times a week. That's good. But what are the fit people doing? 5, 6, 7 days a week. That's the same thing. So what are the behaviors we would do with sleep? Well, if you're not getting over 6 hours, it's really 7, but like if you're not getting over 6 hours of sleep, we know it's below 6, you're creating disease inside of you. So what we're looking for is for the fit people is at 7 to 9 hours. And what are the fit people doing? 8, 9, and 10. Like that's how we map the sleep one. And how do we do nutrition? Nutrition, people on this end of the spectrum are eating calorie-dense foods, meaning there's very little nutrients, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, fiber, antioxidants, those type of things. Very little quality in their food, but lots of calories. What does that look like in real life? Anything that's been processed.
Mm-hmm.
What are the middle people doing? They're splitting the balance between there. They're having some chips. They're having some alcohol. They're eating out at restaurants, but they're also balancing that with some clean protein, some fruits, some vegetables. They are skipping some desserts every now and then. They're trying to pay attention, not eating too much. What are the people on the fit side doing? They're eating fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, very little sugar. They're trying to balance their meals. They're not overeating. They're worried about their sourcing. They're trying to get from as clean a thing as they possibly can. That's what we're doing with the nutrition category. And then we go with the connection thing. Like, are you paying attention to your stress levels and your relationships? Or is this something that you feel like you're a victim to, right? And we get into the mindset aspect of this thing. So yeah, what we want to do is map the system. And what we do is this sick, well, fit, and then we create the subcategories: your training, your nutrition, your sleep, your mindset, and how well you connect with other people, recover, all that stuff.
The sick, well, fit continuum. Impossible question to answer, but where would you, if you had to take the average, and we'll stick with America because obviously it's where we're at, but it's likely to be the case pretty much everywhere. If you had to put a percentage on like this many people are in the sick category, almost no matter what of those metrics we kind of pulled out of the hopper and put in there, what percentage was in that well category and what percentage might be in that fit category?
It's a cool, I'll do it as a thought. I don't have the answers to that. But from my own very narrow view of this, I would unfortunately say 50 to 60% of America is in the sick category. I would say another, the 30 to 40% are in the well category, and only 10% are in the fit category. Mm-hmm. If that, it might even be lower than that.
So then so my question then would be the goal. I mean, Shane's question, what we're talking about is how do we move the sick, the 50 to 60%, again, whatever that actually is, into that well category? Where are we? Why is there such a gap between those two things? Like if you had to identify like what's going on that the majority of people fall into that sick category versus the well category.
Okay, so this is a huge conversation. This is and we're up against it. We're set up to fail. And mostly it comes down to, I am a capitalist through and through, but it comes down to dollars. Yep. It's big food, big soda, and big pharma. So those massive companies essentially drive legislation. So what are the laws? Mm-hmm. Basically what gets put on food labels, what's labeled as a carcinogen and can't be sold in America, and what can. They drive the education system, basically what's being taught in schools, and religion. So all of the authority figures that we take, that we say, please tell us how to do this well, mm-hmm. are conspiracy theorist approach to this, are their motives is to line pockets, not for the health of society. Mm-hmm. So we're up against it. It really is. There's not a lot of money to be made in sustainable farming. There's not. The feedlot, industrial farming, is no pun intended, a cash cow. Like a massive multi-$100 business, if not trillion-dollar business. To think that those guys aren't going to try to protect themselves and expand their year-over-year comps, meaning like they made this much last year and they want to make more next year. So say that they're going to like let it slide to like what's the healthier alternative is in my mind is just naive. Now, what do I mean by like it's involved in religion and schools? That's they're the ones that are formulating the studies. They're putting out the studies to confuse us, to make us so we don't have. Is milk good for you or bad for you? Are eggs good for you or bad for you? Is wheat and gluten good for you or bad for you? It's so confusing, right? Is sugar good for you or bad for you? People, there's a lot of ambiguity in that. What about saturated fat? Like, there's a lot of confusion on purpose. They're trying to do that. So, okay, that's where we're up against. So how do we then combat that? You start with a podcast. Mm. It's you try to create as much awareness of the fight that we have and the uphill battle we have, and you try to layer in the importance of how much this matters. Because if you don't, you just go like, hey, like this is cheaper, and this is what I'm doing the best I can, and I need to feed my family. And this is the best way to do it, is to go get the super value meal at McDonald's. And that's where I can get the most food for my $15. Mm-hmm. And it takes a really high level. It's easier, convenience, easier, tastes good, satisfies, all of those things. But that's because it's easier and more convenient and satisfies the immediate taste buds and temptations, doesn't mean it's the right long-term sustainable solution. And that's always going to be a harder thing, just like us personally. For those things, what's more convenient, what's more satisfying, all those things, is not to go to the gym. It's to stay on the couch and just watch the next episode. Like that's the easier thing to do, but that's not going to set us up for that long-term success. And we have to start small, think locally. Act locally to think globally. If we want to make the change that we want to see in the world, it starts with us. It starts with us, and it's already happening in a big, big way, going to the farmers markets as opposed to buying the processed crap from the supermarket. The only way it's going to change, in my opinion, the only way it's going to change is when consumer habits start to change. And this is why the big companies are paying more attention to organic and farm fresh, and because people are more interested in the farmers markets and the health and the sourcing of their foods, and they're becoming more and more aware of this. But they're only going to follow the almighty dollar along the way.
Yeah. You said that they're these various entities, which they're obviously not a single entity, but that they're in the advantage when people are confused. And I don't know that they do it on purpose, but I also don't know that they do anything to simplify it, right? But I say that to say, like,
they do it on purpose.
You think so?
Absolutely. So they go, and when studies come out that say Coca-Cola is bad for you, Coca-Cola then goes and funds their own studies that they pay the doctors to say the opposite. Yep. They're literally doing it to combat, so they confuse the marketplace. If every single person, like we did with cigarettes, we've done this before. We did this before, but in the beginning, they confused it. Doctors were smoking cigarettes in offices because they confused the marketplace and said, these things aren't bad for you at all. They used to prescribe terrible, terrible drugs to people to help them become healthier versions of themselves when it wasn't at all. They're interested in shareholder value, not stakeholder, not the customer, but shareholder value. So they are doing it. And I don't want to whitewash everything. There are good politicians. There are good people in religious settings. There are good teachers and lobbyists. There are people that do good, but there are also people that don't have our best interests at heart.
You started that by saying, you're a capitalist, which I didn't have any doubt over. But everything you just laid out was, and I'm not going to say it's anti-capitalist because it's not that, but there is a pushback against capitalism in there. And maybe it's just an individual's choice of how they participate in this kind of system, right? You talked about food choices. We talked about any number of other things. But how do I'm thinking about this macro question from Shane, which is how do we move a population that's maybe D plus to what I think he said C minus or C plus, right? How do we move them from a D plus? How do we move more people from a D plus to a C plus? It strikes me as you do that by, to your point, getting people to do different things with their dollars, different than what most are doing most of the time. And so what does that in your mind begin to look like on a bigger scale than I'm going to try to go to the farmer's market? Like because that everybody responds to incentives. These companies that are responding to incentives as well. They're responding just to incentives that run counter to perhaps your and I incentive, because our incentive is how can I maintain my health? How can I get healthier? They don't care about that. That doesn't factor in. So what are the big things that might be able to be done to change individual economic decisions so that those individual economic decisions trickle up to the boardroom and trickle onto a balance sheet?
It's going to take some brave people. So on the local small level, it can happen generationally. Whereas you raise your kids with a different level of education, understanding, and values of what health means, how to pursue it, and how to bring that to your dinner table and behaviors throughout the day.
What the priorities are.
And then throughout that generation coming up, and when your kids are teachers, when they are in government, when they have influence, they are now influencing them with that level of understanding. It takes a long time for big institutions. It's like turning around a cruise ship.
Yeah.
For big institutions to make massive, drastic changes. First and foremost, because they have to raise their hand and say, we were wrong. That's a hard thing for anyone to do. Like even the tobacco companies, which are now mandated to do it through public advertising, like that was big, but it took a whole generation of us coming up and going like, this is wrong. And it's up to us to push the policymakers into mandating this thing. Mm-hmm. So that's like the small thing is like you raise your kids different with a different set of values, but it can happen at a higher scale on a bigger level more quickly. But it takes a revolutionist. It takes someone to stand up to a really powerful organization like Monsanto or somebody like that is destroying, agriculture and food. That's not a small thing to do, to actually like be brave enough. You've been elected in a position or you're going to commit your life to a fight. Mm-hmm. That takes a brave person. And that's why we're up against it. Mm-hmm. Because that singular brave person with their small little army of constituents has to go up against literally billions of dollars of power. And the likelihood is they're going to get squashed. Mm-hmm. Now, we are part of a community that's started those little mini fights, but that's what it's going to take is enough of those things.
Yeah. Back to the sick, well, fit continuum, because I think that's we got an amazing there. Yeah, but that's a really good framework. Do you think that you said one of the things you said was like nobody asked questions about the well, right? Whatever that time frame of the mile was. And the first thing that popped in my head is like my doctor never has any questions for me. Like I go in there, physical, anything going on? No, cool, get the hell out. He calls me boring every time I see him, which is great. But it strikes me that like we do this weird thing where we obsess about the sick and we obsess about the fit,
right?
Just culturally, right? Like, and to your point, like that's what we talk about. Everybody's sick, or gosh, that guy's really fit, or that girl's really fit, and we don't talk about, well, wouldn't it be great if we were all just felt better, right? And so, do you feel like it's a little bit of a, it's not particularly sexy to talk about just being well, right? To Shane's question of the C+, like nobody's going to talk about C+, and so therefore nobody thinks of it as the aspiration, right? The sick people think, maybe I'm going to get to fit, and gosh, what a long road that is from where I am today and what that could be. I'm not sure I've got that in me, right? I'm not sure I'm not sure I'm going to, or literally like they're just not going to put the time in over a long enough period of time to get there. So I guess the question is just like, do we just have a kind of a framing problem where we put fit on the pedestal when we should just be putting wellness on the pedestal and defining that and saying that's what wellness looks like. That's what well looks like.
Yeah.
Do we need the aspiration?
No, I don't think we should be putting well as the aspirational thing, because remember, the farther that you move towards the right and down that spectrum towards fit, you're creating more and more of a buffer against sickness. Yep. So if you are just well and you get an acute injury, let's say you're in a car crash and you get a massive back issue. If you're just well and you have that back issue, well, you could be sick for the rest of your life. Whereas if you are fit, the chances are you might get knocked down for a little bit, but you will recover because you're stronger.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great point.
So we want to be chasing that fitness. I think that the conundrum we find ourselves in is the sick people. So we're asking them to, as we said in this, we're asking you to chase adequacy. We're chasing average. Like that's not very exciting for most people. And the people that are, here's my take on this. Like the people that are in the average well, they're trying. Mm-hmm. Like you have to try to be there. Now, moving them down the ladder, what we could do is just tweak some things. Like, yeah, I get it. You're buying the organic toaster pastries, Pop-Tarts, but like you're trying because you think they're organic, but hey, just as a heads up, that's still completely a processed food. And they go, oh, really? Yeah, see, there's no actual like nutrients in there. I know the label looks healthy. In a picture of a farm, it says organic across the top, but that's actually like, look at the ingredients. It's like evaporated corn syrup, soybean oil, enriched wheat flour. It's like, those are all bad things. Like, oh, but they're paying more for it. Mm-hmm. They're shopping in the healthy aisles. They're just like these little, they're trying, right? They're putting in some decision-making, some behavior, some actions to actually do that. They're going to the gym 3 days a week, but when they go there, they just sit on an elliptical reading a magazine. They're giving up their time and energy. They think they're doing this well. Well, if you go, hey, instead of that, what if you started doing some of this, what we call like high-intensity interval training, like stay on your elliptical, but go 1 minute really hard and then go easy for a minute, and then go 1 minute really hard and then go easy for a minute. Do that 5 times and then get off and do 5 push-ups, 5 sit-ups, 5 squats as many times as you can in the next 10 minutes. And then jump back on there again. That's going to be 30 minutes still, which is what you used to do. And I think you're going to see a lot more results. And they're like, really? Like, and what if we did that like not only just your 3 times a week, but you added in 1 or 2 more days? Like you're moving those things. The real challenge, the hard thing is that people on the other end of the spectrum don't have any of the behaviors yet.
Yeah.
They're not giving anything up. They're living lives of, so moving from complacency to adequacy is, in my mind, harder than moving from adequacy to whatever we call that, excellence on that side. Yep. It's because you're starting from ground zero. Yeah. When you're trying to push a car across a parking lot, the first few steps are the hardest, right? The hardest thing possible is just starting and taking action. And that's what you're asking for people at the very, very low stages. And that's why, because it's easier, it's more convenient, there's the 50, 60, whatever percent of the population in that category at this point.
Right. I always like to tell people with anything like this, like if you think about doing heavy deadlifts, the first deadlift is always way heavier or way harder than reps 2, 3, or 4, which wouldn't make any sense except when you factor in the momentum of starting and the realization that, oh, I can do this. Yeah. Right. The first rep, you don't have either of those things. And so maybe last question to wrap this conversation up is like what we're talking about is helping more people get the first rep off the ground, proverbially, right? Metaphorically speaking. What does that look like on a big scale? Like where would that even begin to happen? What's not happening that if it happened, some number of this 50 to 60% in the sick category would at least be in the position to build upon the behaviors that you're talking about versus starting from absolutely nothing. Is it school?
Yeah. What would be your answer to that?
Well, you got to think about what everybody touches, right? Like what everybody will engage in to some degree. And you say school, but like school has gym classes. Schools have had gym classes forever. So maybe that's not the answer, but that kind of thing is the first thing I think about is like, what is everybody engaged with already that you could tack this into? And maybe gym class isn't enough. Maybe it has to be a broader health curriculum starting in kindergarten all the way through, right? Yeah. 12th grade. Like, because that doesn't exist. Like, I don't know that I ever took maybe I took a health class once. And
but your health class was like, this is a penis, this is a vagina.
Right.
Like
that
health class.
Yeah, exactly. Which we can talk about that later. Talk about that a different day. But like I definitely had gym class, and that was fun for me because that was basically sports and play. But maybe that's not enough. Maybe that's the answer.
What if PE and health was not the way, because kids don't have PE every day.
True. Yeah, my Emerson's got it 1 day a week. It's his favorite day of the week.
How is it? So right there. So what we're saying is to be healthy, you need to play dodgeball once a week. That's what that's the physical so PE is physical education. What if instead every single day, just like we've done talks on this before, how would you reform education, because I agree with you. It's got to start. You can't ask the parents to do it because it's systematic and that's what they grew up with. So you have to have some sort of transformative system in place that gets in front of everybody. And to me, what if the first, just like we want to learn who the first president of the United States was, just we want to learn about, what happened at World War II, just like we want to learn about, the alphabet and the Pythagorean theorem, and just like we want to learn all of those things. Well, what better thing could we do to truly influence people, because we know the connection between the mind and the body, than giving them a healthy body? And what if the first 2 hours of every day was true physical education, both from the movement perspective? So imagine if everybody in every school start off every single day with a 60-minute CrossFit class. Mm-hmm. Holy smokes. And then the next hour was 5 factors of health. Mm-hmm. Like, where would those people be when they start that at 5 and 6 years old, when they are 18 and 19 years old, after doing that for, a decade and a half? It would be a completely different operating system, which would create a completely different set of results. I think that is as powerful, but again, that's going to take someone really brave that goes up against it. Because, by the way, this was Michelle Obama's initiative. This was her as the first lady. This is what I'm going to bring to the public. It was, we are going to get people to eat better. We're going to get people to eat better. We're going to change school lunches. We're going to do all this stuff. And then the lobbyists that provide the school lunches got in front of her, and she was like, okay, instead let's get kids to move. And it wasn't physical education. It was just like, let's just run around a bunch. That was the change, because there was a really brave person that couldn't take the fight all the way.
Yeah. Fascinating. All right. We're going to wrap it up there. That was cool, though. Thank you, Shane. If you guys want questions into the queue, either from our warm-up, or sometimes I choose to go deeper as we did today, find me on Instagram, PS Cummings. Drop me a DM. I'll get them into our list. We're going to do a cool down in a minute. Before we do, a quick shout out. This is when we just take a note or review from listeners, and we just kind of just say thanks. So this is from Caitlin on Instagram. She said, I started listening to the podcast and following the CompTrain programs since May, and I can confidently say that both have changed my life. The way you all present the 5 factors has given me so much more clarity and freedom for how to live my life. I now feel like the most authentic version of myself. So thank you. So thank you to Caitlin. Thank you everybody out there who does leave us reviews. We read every single one of them. So if you haven't yet, wherever you're listening to this, leave us a review. It'll make us feel good. All right. Our cool down is going to be super quick. I just wanted to, I sent this to you a couple of days ago. I just found out there's a mother in my town. So I live in southern Maine. And there's a gym in town that I don't actually know the folks there. I know of the gym. They've been around for a few years, but for various reasons, I haven't actually come over to say hi. And my wife saw something on Facebook recently about a member of that gym who she was doing some clean and jerks, something similar with a barbell. And I don't know exactly what happened, but something happened. And the end result is that she was paralyzed. And so the local news, or News Center 5, I think is what it's called, did a little feature on her. And I'm going to drop a little audio from that interview because it struck me as exactly the right thing. And so I'm going to drop that audio in now, and then I'll come back in a second.
This is my gym. You know what I mean? Like, just silly things, like putting my shoes on, putting my pants on. It's a workout, but I get to be good at it, and I get to try my best to do everything to the best of my ability. And this is my gym. Yeah, it seems pretty minuscule. It seems pretty silly, but this is my life, and I'm going to make the best of it. It's just going to look different.
How do you keep this attitude?
You have to. You get to choose. You have to. You really do. You get to choose. You know what I mean? Like, every face that you see throughout the course of the day, every interaction you have, you get to choose how you treat that person, how you leave that person. And it's a choice. And don't get me wrong, there are days that are like, I'm going to break down. You know what I mean? I'm going to have a little cry sesh, or a big cry sesh. because life is hard. But when you come out of it, it's all in perspective. You know what I mean? I'm here. I get to choose. I get to choose to put a smile on my face. And 9 times out of 10, when you put a smile on your face, you feel better.
All right, so her name is Emily Maki. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And all I wanted to do is just raise a little awareness and point people towards a GoFundMe that if you want to help, you can do so. I think that's a really good way to do it. We wish Emily nothing but the best. And I think that if she keeps the attitude she has got nothing but good things coming. So we wish her the best. Wish everybody at the gym the best, because I can only imagine how difficult that has been. So we'll leave those links in the show notes if you want to check it out. I would really appreciate it. I don't know Emily. I don't know the gym, like I said, but I think that this is something that they would greatly appreciate. So thank you in advance for everybody who jumps over there, drops a couple bucks over to help Emily. Good. All right, my friend. Thank you everybody out there for listening. Thank you for your ratings and your reviews. Ben and I will be back for another episode of Chasing Excellence next week.